be able to leave this earth, knowing and people knowing that I was a good person.
That one seemingly harmless remark from Malcolm Jamal Warner, "Oh, honey, it wasn't just a casual statement, it was like a prophecy." You could feel the weight in his voice. It wasn't only about leaving behind some spiritual legacy, no. It was the sigh of a man who had spent his entire life under the burning spotlight, forced to carry the heavy image of perfection, the flawless icon everyone wanted him to be. And then, bam, when Warner passed away, whispers started circling like wildfire. People were suddenly talking about a secret diary. Yes, a little notebook, tucked away, filled with words he never dared to share publicly. Think about it. Was this just the tired rambling of a man who had lived through the dizzying highs of fame? Or was it his silent indictment of the murky, dark side of Hollywood that had been clinging to him all along? The answer? Still locked away. But the mystery? Too irresistible to ignore. So buckle up, because what really lies inside those pages? We're about to spill it all. Stick with us till the end, because this story, it's unlike anything you've heard before. And don't forget, hit that like, smash the subscribe button, and ring that notification bell. Trust me, you won't want to miss the tea that's about to be served. Now, to understand why that diary, or rumor of it, still stirs such deep emotions, we've got to rewind. Because before Warner became this profound, respected icon, he was just a kid on the small screen. Awkward, sincere, but oh so relatable. That boy who wiggled his way into everyone's living room and heart, eventually earning the nickname America's Brother. The boy who became America's brother. Let's roll back to August 18th, 1970, Jersey City, New Jersey. A baby boy came into the world with a name already soaked in legacy. His mom, Pamela, raised him as a single mother, and she named him Malcolm Jamal. Malcolm to honor the fiery civil rights leader Malcolm X, symbol of unshakable willpower, and Jamal after Ahmad Jamal, the jazz pianist whose rhythm and talent shook the music world. Even his name was a prophecy. This child was meant to carry both resistance and artistry, and one day he'd be stitched into America's cultural memory. By 9 years old, Malcolm Jamal Warner already had his eyes locked on performance. While other kids were fooling around, Warner was captivated by the camera, diving headfirst into amateur acting classes. And let's be real, his mom, Pamela, she was more than just a parent. She was his rock, his cheerleader, and his first manager. She drove him for hours just so he could show up at little auditions. Why? Because she saw something. Not just a kid chasing a hobby, but this fiery light in her son. Something that, if nurtured, could one day shine so brightly the whole world would notice. Then came the moment that changed everything. 1984, Malcolm Jamal Warner, just 14, beat out countless kids to land the role of Theodore Theo Huxtable on The Cosby Show. And when that first episode aired, America had a brand new son. Audiences couldn't get enough of Theo. It wasn't just the innocent humor. It was that warmth, that relatability. He was that perfect mix of witty, clumsy, and lovable. Families across the country, from Jersey living rooms to California apartments, saw their own children in him. Warner became a national phenomenon overnight. And guess what? In 1986, his portrayal even snagged him an Emmy nomination for Outstanding Supporting Actor. At just 16, that was unheard of. Reporters were calling him America's son, and fans talked about him like he was the boy next door, the friend everyone wished they had. But behind the dazzling studio lights, Warner was still just a kid trying to balance it all. Imagine this: mornings at school, afternoons rushing to set, late nights cramming under the glow of backstage lights. Exhausting. And yet, he never let it show. Millions of people laughed at Theo's lines every week, but off camera, sometimes Warner just wanted to peel off the makeup, curl into a corner, and breathe as himself again. Through it all, Pamela was the glue. She refused to let her son become some spoiled Hollywood brat. She made sure his grades stayed up, pushed him into arts classes, and drilled responsibility into him. Thanks to her, Warner wasn't just the golden boy on screen, he was also a grounded teen who respected people around him. By 1988, just 18 years old, he had already written his memoir, Theo and Me Growing Up Okay. Can you believe that? At 18 exclamation mark. But this wasn't some impulsive teenage stunt. It showed just how introspective he was, how much he wanted to put his thoughts into words. And that very book? It sparked the rumor that Warner was a man who kept diaries, private thoughts, late-night reflections, the kind that might later morph into this secret journal everyone whispers about. When The Cosby Show ended in 1992, Malcolm Jamal Warner was barely in his early 20s. But here's the catch. He wasn't just any young actor starting fresh. He was still carrying the massive label, Theo Huxtable, the boy America had laughed with, cried with, and adored. That kind of fame, it's a blessing and a curse rolled into one. On one hand, he had an open door to Hollywood. On the other hand, those very doors often came with a lock. Everyone wanted Theo, but few were willing to see Malcolm as anything else. The real turning point came in 1996. Warner landed the lead in the sitcom Malcolm and Eddie, starring alongside the hilarious Eddie Griffin. This was his chance to shake off Theo's shadow. And oh, did he do it? He wasn't the clumsy teen anymore. He was a grown man navigating adult life with his best friend. The show ran until 2000, proving to audiences that Warner could stand tall on his own. Black viewers especially praised it for being fresh, modern, and reflective of real life while still keeping that witty humor. But Warner wasn't about to stop at just acting. He dipped his toes into producing. And not just any project, he was the executive producer of The Magic School Bus. Yes, the iconic kids show that had millions of children glued to the TV. He wasn't just in front of the camera now, he was behind it, shaping the magic. It was proof he wasn't just a one-trick pony, he was evolving into a multi-talented artist. More than an actor, the musician, the poet. And here's where the story takes an unexpected twist. Warner wasn't just acting, and he wasn't just producing, he was also a musician and poet. He founded his jazz funk band, Miles Long. And music wasn't some side hobby for him, it was his escape, his real way of expressing emotions that dialogue alone couldn't capture. And the ultimate payoff? In 2015, he teamed up with Robert Glasper and Lala Hathaway, and together they won a Grammy for Best Traditional R&B Performance with Jesus Children. Let me repeat that. Malcolm Jamal Warner, the kid who grew up as Theo Huxtable, was now a Grammy-winning musician. Talk about breaking free from the chains of typecasting. But of course, Hollywood wasn't always kind. Through the 2000s, he kept battling that exhausting curse of former child stars, directors and producers who couldn't see past the character he once played. Even when he delivered, even when he pushed himself into new roles, there was always someone ready to say, "But isn't that Theo?" Imagine carrying that burden for decades. Still, Warner never caved. He once admitted he sometimes had to accept supporting roles that weren't flashy. But instead of sulking, he treated them as training. That mindset, it's what kept him steady in the industry while so many others fizzled out. A resurgence on screen, and then, boom, he came roaring back. His role as attorney Al Cowlings in The People vs. O.J. Simpson, American Crime Story, 2016, reminded audiences just how much weight he could carry in even a brief performance. And then came The Resident, 2018 to 2023, where he played Dr. A.J. Austin. That character was layered, sharp, emotional, complex. Fans loved it. Critics praised it. Suddenly, Warner was no longer just Theo or the boy next door. He was a seasoned, respected actor who could stand toe-to-toe with anyone. The Bill Cosby shadow, but there was no escaping the biggest shadow of all. Bill Cosby. For Warner, Cosby had been a mentor, a guiding light, a colleague who had shaped much of his early career. But then came the avalanche of accusations. Dozens of women came forward. Cosby's legacy crumbled overnight. And with it, the once cherished image of The Cosby Show. In interviews, Warner didn't hide his heartbreak. He admitted that the Cosby he knew was a kind figure, someone who gave him opportunity. But he couldn't deny the horrifying truth of what was being revealed. What cut deepest for him wasn't just the betrayal. It was watching an entire legacy, a cultural milestone, tarnished by one man's darkness. He once said, almost painfully, "If not for the controversy, The Cosby Show could have come back. Like Fuller House or The Conners. We could have made a lot of money." Short words, but loaded with sorrow. The sense of loss was clear, not just financial, but cultural. Years of work, gone in a cloud of scandal. The sudden, shocking death. Then came the moment that no one saw coming. July 20th, 2025. Playa Grande Beach, Costa Rica. The Caribbean sun was blazing, the waves rolling softly, tourists laughing and splashing. Just another ordinary day, or so everyone thought. Warner was there with his family, taking a much-needed break from his packed schedule. He walked the shoreline with his daughter, laughed with a friend, even played in the shallow water. But then, a sudden shift. A massive wave, a violent undercurrent. In seconds, the laughter was replaced by panic. Because let's face it, Warner was different. He didn't fall into the scandals. He didn't spiral out of control. He wasn't in the tabloids every other week. For decades, he was the picture of balance. Calm, kind, stable. So when someone like him, someone who seems so solid, dies suddenly, it leaves a hole too big to explain. That's why people latched onto the journal. It gave them comfort. It gave them a way to imagine he had spoken, even if only through paper. And if it really did exist, it probably wasn't filled with Hollywood secrets or messy accusations. That wasn't Warner's style. More likely it was quiet confessions. The pressure of growing up in a spotlight. The heavy weight of being America's brother. The ache of love lost. The bittersweet joy of fatherhood. And maybe even the exhaustion of trying to always live up to an image. Not scandalous, but deeply, deeply human. Fan reactions and imagined entries. On forums, fans started posting their own imagined journal entries as if finishing the story for him. One wrote, "I just want to be normal, but they keep forcing me to be an icon." Another penned a whole poem and attributed it to him, almost like they wanted to breathe life into his words one last time. It wasn't about fact anymore. It was about collective longing. Fans wanted to feel closer to him, to hear his voice, even if it was only an echo they created themselves. In truth, the journal, real or not, became a metaphor. It was no longer about Warner. It was about us, about how we consume our stars, how we idolize them, and then scramble for answers when their light suddenly burns out.